Welcome back. We're getting ready to jump into the second segment of Chapter 3 in our leadership discussion. And we're going to talk about the leader-follower relationships. And the text talks about them being based on exchanges. And the first question they ask is, what is the currency of exchange? And they, talk about, is it dollars? Is it non-monetary? Is it different varieties of exchanges and currencies of the exchange, but they distill them down into two basic types. It's either tangible or it's intangible. And if you think about tangible, and I'm thinking anybody that's worked in a company, depending on which the company is, there are some types of tangible exchanges. And usually they're, economic or productivity based. For most, at least most of the health plans that I've worked for, those that are equity based, so those that have shareholders and stockholders and, are going to be concerned about, quarterly earnings per share, they have a little different, tangible exchange currency than maybe some of those that are not for profit. But over the years, you're looking at kind of how these exchanges work, and you're thinking about, if you look at the distribution of all of the associates that you either have managed in the past, you're currently managing, or think you might manage in the future. There's in that distribution, there's two basic approaches. There's either the micromanager, direct supervision, work with them on a daily basis, or there's that kind of left alone, autonomous, empowered, the real rock stars that you can call into the office and say, hey, Friday afternoon, I know, but, I just got the call from the CFO and we've got to have this project done or this grant put together by first thing on Monday morning. I'm going to be in here working this weekend. Would you mind, coming in and helping me out? So, and, those are the ones that, they never hesitate to raise their hand. They're ready to take on additional responsibilities. So that's kind of how you look at that distribution. And when you're talking about tangible, currency or tangible currencies of exchange, start thinking about stock options. A lot of companies that are public, that are publicly traded, that have stock as the basis of their company. A lot of them will give employees, especially the high performer, stock options. You've got year-end bonuses. You've got salary increases, and salary increases for those that are highly productive and highly successful, associates or followers. You're not talking about the CPI or the cost of living increase, the COLA. You're talking about something in addition to that. So let's say the COLA for this, for 2023, when everybody got their, salary, the companies usually pass out the cost of living increases and bonuses and things. Usually the tail end of March gives the financial books times to close, and they want to get it out there, especially the bonuses, get it out there before the tax year. So they kind of roll that stuff out in March. And they're talking about not the cost of living increase that everybody gets, unless you're just a complete goofball. But they're talking about if the COLA is like 2 or 3%, they're talking about those individuals that may get a salary increase of like 10% or 15%. And that's not unusual in some companies, especially those that are equity based. You can get tangible exchanges, could be promotions, could be taking on greater responsibilities. In a lot of health plans I've worked for, it's sending individuals to conferences, especially if you work in a Blues plan, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They have the Blues Summit every year. It usually kind of waffles back and forth between somewhere in Florida and somewhere in California, and all of the Blues plans can attend. And those that are just highly productive, plans will signal them out and let them go to the summit. And it's a great opportunity for somebody, especially trying to work their way up the corporate ladder, to get out there and meet other individuals in a Blues plan at the Blues Summit. So you've got that. You've got seminars, you've got credentials, you've got work swaps, you've got advanced degrees, you've got, if you're sales, you may get, if you're the high seller, they may send you and your significant other to, I don't know, to Italy for a week or to the Caribbean for, 2 weeks or something. That's your tangible, your, currency exchange for being a high producer. I can remember when I was in graduate school at Ohio State, Borden's, big company in Columbus, would actually send their rock stars, or those that they had identified as potential rock stars. They would allow them to go to Ohio State, get a master's degree. They would, pay the tuition. They would, in a lot of the classes were, during the day, and, allowed them to miss work. And, it was a great opportunity for those individuals who've been identified by Borden's as those that they wanted to move up through the corporate ladder, those that they thought would be assets to Borden, and, not only in the near term, but in the longer term. And most companies, again, that I've worked for have something similar to like an accelerated development program. They'll throw out the acronym ADP. And those are individuals that, again, they will, send maybe to the local college in the area to get an MBA in, some discipline. So there's just a lot of tangible exchanges. Also work for companies that gave you comp time. So if you worked, if most people working 40, 45 hours a week, and you had to come in and work a weekend, and, you were there for like, 16, 20, 24 hours on a weekend, they'd say, hey, we can't give you any more salary, but we're going to give you a couple of extra days of PTO. So, take a couple of extra days of vacation as soon as we get this grant submitted, and, kick back, relax. And, it was a nice gesture and a tangible exchange. Some people, as far as, tangible exchange, just like to work independently. That's what it takes to satisfy them. And that's easy enough to do. If you've got highly productive individuals and you can give them the opportunity to empower them and to be autonomous and to work independently, go for it. Foundation, and they talk about the foundation relationship between the leader and the follower. And what you really have to worry about is the perception of bias. And they bring this out in the text, that perception of bias and unfairness can cause issues. However, if you structure the tangible currency or the tangible exchange in a way that everybody on the team knows what it takes to get to that level, then it somewhat mitigates the potential for individuals getting their feelings hurt or the perception of bias and unfairness. And so we've talked about kind of tangible, and now the text jumps into the intangible ones. And it's not readily translatable into monetary value. And, intangibles can be developing friendships and friendliness toward individuals. Again, those intangible kinds of, currencies of exchange. I can't remember, maybe it was chapter 4, they talked about one of the best ways to develop your team was to get out and walk around. And I've found over the years that works great. If there's any way that you can get out and just kind of touch base with your teams, maybe once a day is great. Maybe you're going to do it 2 or 3 times a week, but get out and, show them that you care and touch base with them and tell them that they're doing a good job, and, develop some rapport and relationship with them. That goes a long way. And that kind of falls into this intangible exchange. It builds up loyalty. It builds up trust. And at some point, you start to see this mutual responsibility starting to develop, and they're the kind of individuals that it's not out of the ordinary once you build this intangible relationship with your teams to have them stick their head in the door of your office and say, hey, I've got, a few extra minutes. Is there something I can do to help you out? Is there a project that you're facing that, I can take off your plate for you? And those are the kind of followers that you want to develop. And those are the kind of teams that you want to develop. But to develop those, you've got to be a leader that that is willing to go that extra mile, especially on the intangible side, because they talk about, trust is a powerful factor between leaders and followers, and without trust, you've got a micromanager as a leader, and that to me, and I've worked for micromanagers one time in my career, and that was enough. And and that was my first job out of graduate school, and that individual was so insecure that definitely a micromanager. There were 7, 8 economists on the team, and that individual micromanaged us to the level that within a couple of years of her taking over that team, we'd all left and gone to some other direction. So to me, my personal opinion, you just don't want to be a micromanager, and most people don't like to work for a micromanager. And there's a difference between being willing to assist your followers and being a micromanager. A follower satisfies, if you have to be a micromanager without trust in your teams, what you usually end up with is a group of followers that they talk about in the text about the contractual nature of relationship. And so they do just enough to meet the goals that are set forth, or the metrics or the parameters in their contractual arrangement with the company. And, they've got you typically, and in most companies, again, that I've worked for, goals are structured with kind of 3 tiers. There's a meets, there's an exceeds, and there's a stretch. And the stretch is what you want to always hit. Definitely, you've got to hit the meets. If you've got individuals that aren't hitting that meets metric, then you've got an issue there. And, they're not even hitting the contractual terms of the agreement as far as the employment agreement. So you've got, let's say you've got the 3-tiered goals. You want everybody on the team to at least hit the exceeds, and you hope the team and most people on the team are hitting those stretch goals. And if you've got without trust, you lack the motivation. They don't have creativity. There's a failure to respond and produce. And then if you flip that and talk about if you build trust within your followers, you have, highly motivated, they're creative, they're productive, they don't mind working extra hours, especially if they're exempt employees. And remember, we talked in chapter 1, I think, about the difference between, exempt and non-exempt employees. So non-exempt employees, they're hourly individuals, and you have to pay overtime to. And if you're exempt employees, you're salaried, and you don't have to, you're not punching the clock, and you don't get overtime. But again, it goes back, you might get some comp time, or you may just go and work extra hours because that's just the type of individual and the work ethic you have. But you can also build trust between a leader and the team, or the leader and the followers, and you'll see that they become more productive. They will give it that extra effort. They'll work longer hours. They'll even come in and work on the weekends. And the main thing you really enjoy as a leader is when you see them accept greater responsibility, when you see them stick that head in your office door and say, hey, is there anything I can do to help you? Is there a project that, I'd like to get some experience in, I don't know, some aspect of what the company does. And if you ever have some projects along those lines, I'd certainly like to have the opportunity to take those projects over and try to develop them. So to me, that's the ultimate goal that you're working for. Based on trust, can you motivate and mentor employees to a level that, they exceed their expectations? And if you look on, I think it was page 40, 41, 42, I can't remember the exact page number, but there's a chart, and it talks about, the LMX, and it gets into the in groups and the out groups. And leaders with the in groups, it's basically, based on trust. Based on trust gets you into the in groups. And you typically, as a leader, you'll find yourself gravitating to those that perform well, take on added responsibilities. They will take the pressure off the leaders so that you don't have to micromanage them, because, there's just not enough hours in a day. If you have multiple followers or multiple team members, you can't micromanage everybody. You've got to have some of this in group that's going to step up, and maybe they actually they're an informal leader for you. They're out there helping individuals write code, or they're out there helping individuals do some Excel work, or building Lean Six Sigma flow charts, or they're building financial models for you. So that's, it takes the pressure off of you. Maybe you're there in your in group because you have similar interests or values. It's kind of an informal relationship being in the in group. I think you can kind of look around, and especially if you've had supervisors that they will pick out their team members that kind of gravitate toward that in group. And what you'll find is, as a leader yourself, there's certain individuals, and you can't help it, or at least I can't help it, that you're gonna include them in kind of your in group, but it's an informal relationship. Sometimes you find either yourself getting better work assignments and working conditions from your supervisor, and you find yourself turning around and doing the same for your followers. You're talking about positive coaching and feedback. You solicit their input into strategy sessions and problem solving and decision making, and you want to make them feel like they're part of, kind of, it may be informal, but part of the management team for a given project that you're working on. And, they trust the leader to support and make decisions in the best interest of the followers. And to me, that is extremely important. You want them to feel that way. And if you go back to the meet, exceeds, and stretch goals, what you find is the in group, they hardly ever in that. Occasionally they'll be in that exceed goal, but they're up here in that stretch goal. They're hitting those stretch goals on a consistent basis. They're helping the team hit the stretch goals. You'll have some that are kind of working their way into the in group that are maybe back down here in the exceeds area, and they just haven't hardly gotten the skill level piece to get into that, to be hitting those stretch metrics. But that's you can tell that's what they're working toward. And if they're in the in group, you hardly ever get them back down here in just the meets. I mean, that just almost doesn't happen if they're in your in group. And then if you flip that, to the, now we're going to talk about the out group. And that, from my perspective, is just not a pleasant topic to have to worry about as a leader, because they're the mirror opposite of the in group. You're poor performers, they won't assume responsibility. Even if you try to give them responsibility, they do just enough work to meet expectations. They do just enough work to meet that exceed goal. So you're not going to put them on like a cap, an improvement, program of any kind. That you're not going to get a negative evaluation because they are meeting their goals, but it may not be the best evaluation. And it's they may have different backgrounds, values, interests. They tend to disrespect and undermine the leader's strategic vision and the mission that he or she has been handed. I've had managers, especially in the past, that just didn't want to do the work, just didn't like it. And in some instances, these in the out group, it's not that they don't have the capability to be better performers and to be more productive, but they're just not a good fit. I've inherited individuals that, if I go back to the most recent at Buffalo, I inherited individuals when I'm developing out the medical economics team, and I inherited them in the team, and they just didn't enjoy writing code. They just didn't enjoy doing economic analysis. They didn't have that mindset. They just had more of a customer service type mindset. And once you identify that it's just not a good fit, then I was able to help move them to other teams and backfill their positions. And once they got to those teams that were more customer service oriented, they enjoyed, doing telephone work. They enjoyed taking calls from from, customers or covered members in the health plan. And once you moved them out, they might not turn into rock stars, but they certainly started. You talk to the new leaders, and they'd say, yeah, they've gone from just meeting the goals. They're hitting some exceeds and occasionally hit some stretch. So it may just be when they're in that out group, it may just be a bad fit, or you may have some individuals that are just poor employees, bad attitude, just don't want to come to work. They're always calling in sick. There's not, out of the ordinary that's for them to call in sick on a Friday and then they're still sick on Monday. And then, they'll work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then, it's just not a group. And even if you micromanage them or you put them on a corrective action plan or a CAP, it's what you find yourself doing is initially you find yourself trying to help them, trying to get them to improve productivity and to improve their performance. And what you end up doing is just finally managing them out the door. And, that when you have to get to that corrective action plan and, that type of a management process, that's when you bring HR in, because you don't want it to go south on you, even when you're trying to do the right thing. And they talk about that, there's kind of, they throw out three alternatives. Followers may be in between. They're moderately valued, moderately trusted by leaders. To them, I kind of categorize as steady eddies. And you want steady eddies. Steady eddies are, I want to say, the backbone of a team, but steady eddies actually are the ones that, to some extent, are doing the day-to-day mundane tasks that nobody else likes to do, maybe. And so you want some steady eddies. So, and the steady eddies, you can actually, mentor and motivate and train them up so that they're hitting some exceeds. And occasionally they'll hit that stretch goal. But they may not do it on a regular basis, but they still will do more than just meet the goals. And then you can have a group where all followers in the out group. And man, if you've got all followers in the out group, I feel sorry for you as a leader. And that could be just just an identifying characteristic of it's just a poor leader. I mean, that could be just an issue with the leader. And then kind of the third alternative is all the leaders are in the in group. And unfortunately, I've never been lucky enough to have all of my followers in the in group. Leaders, it would be a pleasant, I guess, situation to have everybody in the in group and everybody hitting on all cylinders and everybody hitting the stretch goals and everybody enjoying being to work and no disrespect, no undermining each, a very well and cohesive team. But I've had teams in the past that were close. I've had teams in the past that there might not have been any in the truly out group. They were either kind of steady Eddie or in the in group, but I've never had a team in any of my leadership experience where everybody was in the in group. Something I, again, would like to have that opportunity sometime because I think it would be enjoyable. I guess it's a situation where I've had, talking to some of my peers about teaching this class. And when we were talking about the in group, they were talking about their experiences with in groups and out groups. And they said, actually, when you've got everybody in the in group, sometimes it's not as great as you think it would be. So they kind of told me to be careful what I wish for, but I'd still like to try it, have the opportunity to try it. We're going to kind of stop there on the second segment of Chapter 3. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the LMX dilemma and can you take steps to mitigate the issues that, especially that the out group present to you as a leader and how you kind of take care of that and manage that along. So we're going to stop here and I'll talk to everybody again in a few minutes. See you soon.